The Lost Year. The Road That Went Silent. D. L. Hargrave. The Lost Year, The Road That Went Silent. D. L. Hargrave. Chapter 1. The Road That Went Silent. Elliot's alarm went off at 6:30 a.m. The sound cut straight through his skull, sharp and unforgiving. He groaned, rolled onto his side, and fumbled blindly across the bedside table until his fingers found the phone and the noise finally died. For a few seconds he lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to his own breathing. Another Wednesday. Cold air crept through the gap in the curtains, brushing against his face. Outside, Leeds was already awake. A bus hissed as it pulled away from a stop. Somewhere down the road, a horn blared, impatient, angry, far too early. Leeds never waited. Elliot dragged himself upright and swung his legs over the side of the bed. His head felt heavy, his shoulders tight, as though the day had already taken something from him before it had even begun. He shuffled into the kitchen on autopilot, bare feet cold against the tiles. The kettle clicked on. While it boiled, he leaned against the counter and lit a cigarette. The first drag burned his throat, sharp and grounding. He exhaled slowly, watching smoke curl toward the ceiling. Outside the window, everything looked exactly as it should. People hurried past with collars turned up and takeaway cups clutched in gloved hands. A delivery van idled at the curb, engine rattling. Someone laughed too loudly into a phone. Normal. Predictable. Safe. The kettle boiled. Elliot poured the water, stirred the coffee, and stood there drinking it, letting the warmth seep into his fingers. The cigarette burned down to the filter before he realized. "Brilliant," he muttered, stubbing it out. He showered quickly, letting the hot water pound against his shoulders while his thoughts drifted in the usual miserable circle. Work, bills, messages he hadn't replied to, things he needed to sort but kept avoiding. Just get through today. That was the plan. A rubbish plan, maybe, but it had worked so far. When he stepped back into the bedroom, towel around his waist, something felt wrong. His keys weren't there. Elliot froze. He stared at the dresser, then the bedside table, then the floor. Nothing. A familiar irritation tightened in his chest. No, don't do this. He checked the kitchen counter, the sofa, his jacket pockets, the bathroom shelf for some reason because Panic had never been famous for logic. Still nothing. His phone buzzed in his hand as the minutes ticked by. He was going to be late. Finally, he spotted them, fallen down the side of the armchair, half hidden in shadow. He snatched them up with a sharp breath of relief. Idiot. He dressed quickly, grabbed his bag, and rushed out the door. He didn't lock it. Behind him, Oliver meowed loudly. The ginger cat stood in the hallway, tail flicking in annoyance, amber eyes fixed on him, as if personally offended by his poor time management. I know, Elliot said, already halfway down the path. I'll make it up to you later. Oliver answered indignant meow as the door shut behind him. With another. The car started on the second turn of the key. Elliot pulled away from the curb and headed toward York Road, stopping briefly at the petrol station to fill up with diesel. Inside, he grabbed a takeaway coffee from the machine, snapped the lid on, and jogged back outside. Late. Definitely late. Traffic thickened as he merged onto York Road. Brake lights stretched ahead, of him in a long red line beneath the dull grey sky. Elliot sighed, took a sip of coffee, and settled back into his seat. That was when he noticed the sound. At first, it was easy to dismiss. A low hum beneath the engine noise, subtle, almost like static. He reached out and turned the radio down. The hum stayed. It deepened, vibrating through the steering wheel, through the dashboard, through the soles of his feet. Elliot frowned and leaned forward, scanning the traffic ahead. What the hell is that? The sky dimmed, not gradually, not like clouds passing over the sun. It dimmed as if someone had reached up and turned the brightness down on the world. Cars slowed, then stopped. A man 2 vehicles ahead stepped out, squinting upward. Another followed. Doors opened. Engines idled uselessly. Someone shouted something Elliot couldn't make out. The hum grew louder. Streetlights flickered. Once. Twice. Then went out. For one heartbeat everything froze. And then the world weren't dark. Not night. Not a blackout. A void. Darkness swallowed everything. Sound, light, movement. As though reality itself had been switched off. Elliot's stomach lurched violently. He felt weightless. Suspended. Unable to tell whether he was falling or standing still. A flash of white burned across his vision. A jolt tore through his body. Cold air rushed in. Elliot gasped. He sucked in a breath that burned his lungs and pushed himself up from the ground. Grass clung to his palms and elbows, damp and sharp with morning chill. Mud smeared his sleeve. His coffee was gone. His car was gone. The road was gone. He turned in a slow circle, heart pounding. Trees surrounded him. Tall, ancient things with twisted trunks and branches that clawed at the pale sky. No lampposts. No traffic, no buildings, no leads, just earth, roots, and silence. "This isn't real," he whispered. "It had to be a dream, a blackout, a seizure, something medical. Something explainable. He would wake up any second now." Movement snapped through the undergrowth. Elliot spun round. A woman stumbled into the clearing, breathing hard, hair tangled. Mud streaked across her jeans and jacket. "Elliot?" He recognized her immediately. "Jess." She stopped when she saw him. "Oh, thank God," she said, though the relief vanished almost instantly when she saw his face. "You don't know what's happening either." Elliot shook his head. "I was on York Road," Jess said quickly. "Traffic was backed up. Then the sky just went wrong. Did you hear that noise? Like something was inside your head." "I heard it." More movement followed. Reese emerged next, swearing under his breath, eyes darting everywhere at once. Tommy followed, pale and shaking, clutching his head as though it might split open. Sophie appeared with a toddler pressed tightly against her chest, whispering soft nonsense through clenched teeth. Then Jonas. Then others Elliot didn't recognize. Faces drawn, eyes wide, all carrying the same disbelief. Everyone started talking at once. "Where are we? Has anyone got a signal? This is some kind of joke, right? Where's the road? Where's my car?" Tommy's voice rose above the rest. "I was literally in traffic. I was in my car. Where is it?" Reese pulled out his phone, jabbed at the screen, then held it up uselessly. "No signal?" "Nothing." Jess checked hers too. Same result. Sophie's toddler began to cry. She bounced him gently, though her own breathing had turned fast and shallow. "It's okay," she whispered. "It's okay." But nobody believed her. Elliot scanned the clearing again. Beyond the trees, smoke curled lazily into the air. At first he thought it was a fire. Then he saw the shapes beneath it. Wooden huts. Low, rough-built, uneven, a village, not a modern one, no cars, no lights, no wires, no brick houses, no roads, just timber, smoke, mud and firelight. Reese followed his gaze. "What is that?" No one answered. Because the answer was impossible. Elliot took a slow step forward, staring at the village through the trees. "I don't think," he said carefully, "we're in 2026 anymore." The clearing fell silent. Jess swallowed hard. What does that even mean? Before Elliot could answer, a sound rolled across the valley, low, deep, ancient. A horn. It vibrated through the air and straight into his chest, setting his teeth on edge. Sophie flinched, clutching her child tighter. Reese took a step back without meaning to. Even the birds fell silent. Then Elliot realized there had been no birds to begin with. The horn faded. The silence that followed felt worse. That wasn't a warning, Elliot thought. That was an announcement. They were not alone. They moved toward the village because there was nowhere else to go. The path was little more than packed dirt, uneven beneath their feet. The closer they got, the more people stared. Villagers stopped working. Children pointed. An old man muttered something and crossed himself. Someone laughed openly at their clothes. A woman pulled a child indoors and shut the door. "Friendly place," Reese muttered. Jess shot him a look. "Try not to get us burned as witches in the first hour." "That was my second plan." Nobody laughed. At the edge of the village, they met him. A ragged man sat beside a broken cart, wrapped in a filthy cloak, beard tangled. One hand curled around a dented metal mug. He looked drunk, half-starved, and far too amused. His eyes moved over them slowly. Not confused, not surprised. Expecting. "Well," he said, voice rough as gravel. "Fresh ones." Elliot stopped. "What did you say?" The man smiled, showing uneven teeth. "Fresh ones," he repeated. "Always look the same at first. Lost, cold, still thinking the world owes them an explanation." Jess stepped closer. "Who are you?" The man lifted his mug, eyeing a lazy salute. "Names don't last here." Rhys frowned. "Right. Helpful. Lovely. We've found medieval Yoda." The man's grin widened. "You'll want the North Road," he said. Elliot's stomach tightened. "Why?" "Because that's where the game points." The word landed wrong. "Game." Tommy shook his head. No, absolutely not. I'm not doing riddles with a drunk in a field." The man's eyes flicked to him. "You will." Tommy opened his mouth to argue. The man leaned forward slightly. "You all will." For a moment, no one spoke. Then the man nodded toward the village. "Eat. Change. Rest if they let you. Then G north." Jess's voice dropped. "What's north?" The man stared at Elliot when he answered. "Scarburg Keep." The name seemed to change the air around them. Even the nearby villagers looked away. Elliot felt it then. A pressure behind his eyes, faint, almost nothing, but familiar. The same pressure he'd felt just before the world went dark. "What's at Scarburg Keep?" Elliot asked. The man laughed, not loudly, not kindly, a low, broken chuckle that rattled in his chest. "The question isn't what's there," he said. "The question is what gets there." Sophie hugged her child tighter. "You're scaring him," she said. The man looked at the toddler. For the first time his smile faded. "Aye," he said softly. "Best he learns early." Jess stepped between them. "Enough." The man raised both hands in mock surrender. "Safe travels," he said. Then he lifted his mug again. "Good luck." Elliot blinked, just once, and the man was gone, not walking away, not hiding. Gone. The broken cart remained. The muddy ground remained. The dented mug sat where he had been, rocking gently on its rim. Then it stopped. No one moved. Rhys was the first to speak. "Nope." Jess stared at the empty space. "Everyone saw that, right?" Tommy's voice was thin. "He was there." Elliot looked toward the North Road. Beyond the village it curved into mist and open land, waiting. The horn sounded again in the distance. Lower this time. Further away. Or maybe closer. Elliot couldn't tell. AI he knew was that the world he understood had ended somewhere on York Road, and this new one had already noticed them.